Good morning, people of the world, astrology enthusiasts, fans of the ancient science and art of sky reading. Today, we're going to see how Phaladipika, the 14th century classic Sanskrit text about astrology, explains a couple of things. First of all, we're in the chapter where he has just described what shad-bala is. So what the heck is it? Shad-bala is how powerful a planet is. How influential maybe a planet is. Actually, shad-bala does not fully explain how influential a planet is. There's a slight difference between power and influence. And I haven't really seen it mentioned yet how the influence comes into factor, but it is actually very important. Anyway, Bala is about the potency that a planet has. Now, immediately after he describes Bala, he's still got a few verses in the chapter that's dedicated to Bala, but he's already described it all. So what's he going to say? Let's find out. He's going to say he's going to explain what the difference is between Bala and dignity, especially between exaltation and Bala, because one of the components of Bala was the Tunga, which is the degree of exaltation. So one of the aspects of shad-bala has something to do with exaltation. So we might get it mixed up with dignity. So he's going to give one text to clarifying that, and then he's going to give another text. The next text he's going to talk about, I believe what he's doing in the second text that we covered today is giving you a shorthand version. If you don't have the time or patience to do this whole six-fold calculation, here are the key points. Look at these key points. All right, well, let's take a look and see actually what he's saying. He says, Vakram gato ruchira rashmi ma smahapurno. Nichari bhamsha sahitopi bhaveshta keta virya nivatastu hina rasmir ivoch mitra swakshetra gopi bibalohata dititis chit. Alright, so first thing he says is vakram gato. Vakra means retrogressed. Vakra is crookedness or backwardsness. If a planet's vakra, then it's going backwards, moving against its normal direction. aka it's retrogressed. Vakram gati, backwards movement, or ruchira rashmi, has a lot of brightness. Rashmi means light. Ruchira means shining. Remember I told you that the Rashi is called Rashi and not Nakshatra. Nakshatra means the things that don't move, Nakshatra. And Rashi means some bit of rush, light from the sun. The sun is Rashiman. So planets also have brightness, and the brightness actually changes. You might not notice it if you're casually observing, but if you carefully observe the sky, sometimes Venus is brighter than other times. Sometimes Jupiter is brighter. Sometimes Saturn is not that dim. Why is that? Well, it's because what's happening with the moon is the same thing that's happening with the planet. The moon changes its shape depending on how far away it is from the sun. Here's the sun. Here's the moon. Moon is full. Moon is half. Moon is 0. Moon's half again. Moon's full. So it's because the moon is circular and round, and the amount of shadow that the sun casts on it changes. If you're here, then it's fully shadowed. If it's here, then you can't see the shadow. If it's here, you see half the shadow. Right? Now, that same thing happens with all the planets. The same exact thing that's happening with the moon happens with all the planets. But they're just small dots in the sky. So we don't see half of a small dot or a crescent of a small dot. What we just see with our eyes is less light or more light from the planet. So depending on where the planet is in its orbit relative to the sun, it has fullness or darkness. And he's identifying these two things already, actually, as being his shorthand reference to how a planet gets strength. So apparently these are the two most important things. Out of all the shad-bala factors, he's pointing out at these particularly. Retrogression or brightness. And brightness. Vakram gato ruchira rashmi ma smahapurno. This can make a planet purna, full of power. If it's moving backwards, then it has brightness. Ni chari bhamsha shahitopi. Even if it's in nicham, depression, debilitation, fall. Ari, or enemy sign. Great enemy sign to fall. If it's in a bad dignity. So what he's saying is, look, the dignity may be good or bad. The strength may be strong or weak. There's two different things. A planet can have weak dignity, but strong bala. That's what he's just said in this sentence. A planet which is going backwards and has brightness is very powerful, even though it might be in an enemy sign or debilitated. So he's trying to indicate that these are different concepts. Dignity is a different concept than power. Power is how much force you have. Dignity is what your intentions are. What you want to do. If you're very dignified and very powerful, then you might want to build, an animal shelter. You might want to build a homeless shelter. You might want to do something big for society. If you're very weak and good intentioned, then you might not be able to do anything, but at least you care. If you're very bad intentioned and very weak, then you wish you could smack everybody, but you're just upset that you don't have enough power to insult people. If you're bad and you have high strength, if you have low dignity and high strength, like this situation, then you can really ruin people. You can really mess things up. You can really take stuff from people. So those are the four basic corners of the spectrum of the mixture between dignity and power. Retrogression and brightness make a planet strong regardless of whether it is debilitated or in enemy divisions. Then the second half of the statement is the opposite, illustrating the same point in the opposite way. So he says, Virya nivitastu hina rashmi. If you don't have brightness, then thus you don't have virya. If you don't have rashmi, then you don't have vira. If you don't have brightness, then you don't have power. Then ivocha mitra svakshetra gopi vibalo hata didishchet. It's weak. A planet that's not bright, for example, is weak. It doesn't matter if it's ucha, exalted, mitra, friend sign, sakshetra, own sign, doesn't matter. Doesn't affect the power. The power of the planet is affected by things like retrogression, direction, and brightness. The dignity of the planet is affected by things like its relationship to the sign that it's in, if it's exalted or debilitated, etc. And they're two separate considerations. So retrogression and brightness make a planet strong regardless of whether it is debilitated or in enemy divisions. A planet without brightness is weak, regardless of whether it is exalted or in its own or a friend sign. Any questions? Would Saturn be very, very bright right now? So try to figure that out. Let go. Somebody said. Xena. So this is how you figure it out. You know it's October, like late, right? So you know the sun is about 2/3 of the way through. You guesstimate the sun is about 2/3 of the way through Libra, just based on the time of the year. Because on September 21st, the sun began Libra. On October 2, okay, so the sun is pretty much towards the end of Libra. It's pretty close. So for any planet to be very, very, very bright right now, it would need to be on the opposite side of Libra. It would need to be in Aries, towards the end of Aries. Beginning of Taurus, end of Aries. The closer that planets right now are to the end of Aries, beginning of Taurus, the brighter they're going to be. And the closer they get. So let's take a look. See if I can even share this with you. This screen. Let's get rid of the non-anonymous information. We'll do this. And then I'll share it. I'll pick something like this. Well, I'm going to have to scoot over to the side. Let's get this window on the screen. Here it is. That's big. Let's get rid of this. I wish we could also get rid of this, but I don't know if we can. But we could push that off to the side. Okay. Now we need to shrink this puppy. It is too big. Get much smaller, please. So this is the sky right now. It's probably going to wind up too small to see. All right. So let's see how the guesstimate was. Yes, see the guesstimate? That the sun is... you can't see my face. I'm going to move. So I guesstimated that the sun is at the end of Libra. And there it is. You see it? Let me see if I can zoom this. No. Typical. So what planet right now is the brightest? The moon. You see it's in Aries. It's not quite all the way full yet because it's not at the end of Aries. Now, Xena said Saturn is very bright right now. Is that just her delusion, or is she just seeing something different? No, she's right. Saturn is more than... It's about trine from the sun. Right? So it's about 80% as bright as it ever gets. Jupiter is also very bright right now. Now, planets which are very dim or invisible right now are the planets which are close to the sun. So you see Mercury is very close. Saturn, Mars is basically in it. And Venus is real close. But actually for Venus and Mercury, you have a different maximum. But anyway, to finish the sentence, it would be very hard probably to see Venus, Mercury, and Mars in that order tonight. In fact, it's probably impossible to see Mars and Mercury. You have to be really, really careful to see it. Mercury, you will have to wait until sunrise and catch it right before the sky gets too bright. Venus, you'll see at sunset, and you'll see it pretty well. Now, here's why. Why is Venus actually kind of bright right now, even though it's pretty close to the sun? Because Venus and Mercury are interior planets. They're closer to the sun than the Earth. So they never reach 180 degrees away from the sun. They have maximum distances from the sun, which are less than 180. Venus is 60. 60 degrees is max, and Mercury is 30. So Mercury is actually about half as difficult as usual to see him, but Mercury is always difficult to see. And Venus, 60. So that's about a little bit more than half of our maximum brightness. So that's how you figure it out. That's how you figure out brightness, and brightness is very a fast, quick shorthand to strength. Now also look, he's also mentioning retrogression, so I don't know if the letters are too small, but it appears that Jupiter, let me check on a bigger version. All these guys have ceased their retrogression. Yeah, that's why things are actually getting much better. Jupiter, nobody's retrogressed, so nobody's getting that strength right now. All right, so that's one little quick example of how you check. I'll get my face back in the middle, and we'll go back to normal. Let's see if there's any other questions. Venus and Jupiter, now they also have their, remember he said there's shad-bala, which means the inherent brightness of a planet. So Saturn, for example, might be 180 degrees away from the sun. So it's at its maximum brightness. It's not going to be as bright as Venus is, even when it's not particularly far from the sun. Venus is always the brightest planet. Jupiter is always the second brightest. Following that, I believe it's Mercury, and then Mars is very difficult because it's red, so it doesn't come across very bright, and Saturn is the darkest. Thank you, Trandam. Thank you. All right. Let's get back into the text and see what's the next statement. That's all the questions from this one. We'll look at the next one then. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay, next statement, which is the fifth one. Tungasta bhalino kilas chasashinas lagyam hipak shad-bhavam. Bahanor digbalam aha vakragamane tatra grahanam balam. Karkyuksha jagatali gohira balantyoksha shvipas chatyaga ketus tat pariveshadhan Vasubali Chen Dvarka Yogo Nishi. Okay. First thing he says is, first half of the verse is what I believe is just a shorthand version of, this is the key essential point of shad-bala. If you don't have time and patience to do all 6 calculations, just check out these 2 points and come to a relatively confident conclusion. The second half of the text gives you information for how to assess strength for the unusual planets, Rahu, Ketu, and the other upagrahas. So for the first half, he says, Tungasta Balino Akilas. All the planets Akila. Akila means all, complete. All the planets get bala from being close to Tunga. Remember what Tunga means? Tunga means the peak of the mountain. So this is revealed previously. He was explaining this word. Tunga means the point of the point of the exaltation. So for moon 13 degrees, for moon 3 degrees, Taurus. Every planet has a particular point in its exaltation sign. But the way that this operates is completely different than the rest of the sign dignity. You just take 180 degrees away from that point is no strength at all, and exactly at the point is full strength, and there's a rainbow or a spectrum in between. Oh, I need a drink. All planets get strength from proximity to their exaltation point. So this is one shorthand way that you could just evaluate how close is the planet to its exaltation point. Tungasta balino kilascha, and then sashina slagyam hipakshod bhavam. So besides that most important point, the moon has another point which is most important. Shashina, the moon gets its renown, slagya, or its power, from pakshodbhava. Pakshabala means how full it is. So all planets get strength from proximity to their exaltation point. The moon gains prominence by waxing. Makes sense, right? Bhanu digbalama. The sun gets prominence by digbala, which means by getting to the apex. The sun's digbala is at the apex. Directional power for the sun is the apex. Noon. So the closer the sun is to noon, the more powerful it is. The closer the moon is to full, the closer the sun is to noon, the closer any planet is to its exaltation degree. By degree. Is a new simple version of determining bala. Tungasta balino kilastashinas lagyam hipakshod bhavam bhanur digbalamaha vakra gamane tatra grahanam balam. The others, not the sun or the moon, they get it by retrogression. By vakra gamana. Now, so basically he gave you 2 points for every planet. Every planet is how close is it to its exaltation point, and then every planet has one additional factor. The additional factor for the moon is how full is it. The additional factor for the sun is how close is it to the apex of the sky, or how close is it to noon. The additional factor for the rest of the planets is whether they're moving backwards or not. Okay? I don't know why he picked these 2 things to mention here. I think these are the most important points. Out of all the 6 and all the subcategories of the 6, these are the most important things. Now in the second half of the verse, he discusses how upagrahas, or semi-planets, get strength. Rahu is strong in Cancer, Taurus, Aries, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Ketu is strong in Pisces, Virgo, Taurus, Gemini, and Sagittarius. So there's 5 signs that make Rahu strong, and then there's 5 signs that make Ketu strong. It's the interesting point is that they are almost not the same, nor are they opposites. So for example, Rahu is strong in Cancer, but Ketu is not strong in Capricorn. None of the upagrahas is strong in Capricorn. So when Rahu is in Cancer, Ketu is in Capricorn. So this is a little bit interesting. They don't get strong together as a unit. Rahu is strong in Taurus, but Ketu is not strong in Scorpio. Rahu is strong in Scorpio. Rahu is strong in Aries. Ketu is not strong in Libra. None of the upagrahas are strong in Libra. So none of the upagrahas are strong in Libra or Capricorn. Rahu is strong in Aquarius, but none of them are strong in Leo. There's actually, that's right. So there's 10 signs mentioned, 5 per, but Taurus is in both lists. So there's 3 signs which don't make any Upagraha strong. That's Libra, Leo, and Gemini. So the one situation you could get where they're both strong is if Rahu's in Scorpio, because then Ketu will be in Taurus. Rahu will be strong by being in Scorpio, and Ketu will be strong by being in Taurus. Oh, and you could also get... Nope. Pisces is opposite Virgo, so you can't get that. Those are both for Ketu. Gemini is opposite Sagittarius, so you can't get that for both. All right, so that's one interesting thing. He's got a simple consideration for Rahu. Ketu is based on their sign. Then he says Pariveshan Indra Chapa, and we like, what the hell is that? Because we don't use these anymore. But these are other types of upagrahas. He will eventually define what these things are. I think it's in chapter 15 or something. Pariveshan, or 25. Pariveshan and Indra Japa are strong when they conjoin the moon or sun during the night. Well, this makes sense, actually. And if you ask me, the way that the wording is, this can also apply to Rahu and Ketu. If they conjoin the moon or the sun, they get strong, because the Rahu and Ketu do eclipses when they conjoin the moon or the sun. And if it's during the night when they gain power at night, then they're very strong. All right, so this is his little rule of thumb. All planets get strength from proximity to the exaltation. The moon also gets it by waxing. The sun also gets it by attaining the apex. The others also get it by retrogression. Rahu is strong in certain signs. Ketu is strong in other signs. Pariveshan, Indra Chapa, or other ways that the Rahu and Ketu get strong is by conjoining the moon and sun during the night. That's it. That's what we're going to cover today. Any questions? Ketu is strong in Gemini, but it's a little difficult to translate. But yes, I do believe it means Ketu is difficult in Gemini. Hi, Kelly. The exaltation points. He told us that in the first chapter. Let's go back and see what it was. Definitions, planets, I think, right? Let's check signs. Yeah, he has it in the signs section. Signs. Here we go. Why do I not have it? I seem to have edited it out because I get annoyed by it. Hang on. For some reason I edited it out. So that means I need to go look in the original and see. Just a moment. See if I can find it in this heap of messy original. Here. The highest exaltation and fall of the planets counting from the sun are the 10th. Now, this is basically the same as it would be in Hellenistic astrology. But you have to look up both. And there's some planets which they changed the degree. I think it's the Sun and Jupiter. And that's a bit suspicious. That they changed the degree for these two planets. And I think it has to do with nakshatra. And how because they're blending nakshatra with the zodiac. So they don't want a planet to have... They can't get their head around a planet having its best exaltation degree in a nakshatra that's very incompatible with it, or that's right next door to a nakshatra that's very compatible with it. So they've moved a couple. Like I think they tried to move the sun so that it was in Kritika, or Jupiter to Pusha from the original position. So I'm not sure if these are original. I would use the original concepts, which probably is recorded in the Hellenistic sources. But anyway, here's what Phaladipika says. Sun is 10 degrees. Moon is 3 degrees. Mars 28, Capricorn. Mercury 15, Virgo. Makes a lot of sense. 15 is the middle. What comes after Mercury? Jupiter is 5, Cancer. This seems like the original. Venus is 27, Pisces. And Saturn is 20, Libra. So 10, 3, 28, 15, 5, 27, 20 are the degrees of the planets in order, in their natural order. Maybe that's what your question was about, was what is Jupiter's degree? Hi, Victoria. What? I wonder. Yes, Rahu is strong in Cancer. Does not remember the first text that we saw was strength, dignity are two different things. You can be strong and not such a great person. You can be a strong nice person, a strong mean person, a weak nice person, a weak bad person. And so that's the same four corners for the planets. They can be dignified and weak, they can be dignified and strong, they can be undignified and weak, they can be undignified and strong. So Cancer, Rahu, it's strong, but I don't know if this really means it's the one you pick to get on your team right away. Maybe because it's affecting the moon there, I don't know. Zena, if Rahu and Ketu join the luminaries at night, they gain strength. Yes. Gemini is on Ketu's strong list. This list is to repeat. Rahu is Cancer, Taurus, Aries, Aquarius, Scorpio. I don't know why he puts it in that order either, except that probably the words and the syllables fit the sentence, the poetry that he needs. So to go in a normal order: Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Scorpio, Aquarius. And Ketu is Pisces, Virgo, Taurus, Gemini, Sagittarius. Here. I'll put it in the text chat. When Rahu and Ketu get strong at night close to the sun and moon, how does this express more or less benefic? I told you though, the power is different from the dignity. So it's independent of dignity. How then will a node get any dignity? Because it has no own sign. It has no friends or enemies. So how does it get dignity? The way that I recommend you do this is you see what is influencing the node. If you have a dignified planet influencing a node, the node gets dignity. If you have an undignified planet influencing the node gets undignified. Is it too early to discuss the meanings of privation indrachapa? We did it once. We did it once already. It's in one of our previous live streams. And it will happen. It will come again, but not until the very end of the book. Hi, Hitesh. If they're in the house ruled by the moon, then they're in Cancer, Alf. So Rahu would be strong there. Zena, how would you explain a planet that's strung at its exaltation but in a struggling nakshatra? Yeah, that's why they wanted to change the degrees. It doesn't make sense. But actually life doesn't make sense and it's complicated, and those are the places where you really get accurate understandings, where you have to figure out something that's very messy. So there's certain ways in which the symbolism associated with the planet functions great, and other ways that the symbolism associated with the same planet don't function well at all. Hence, you can have religious people that are morbidly obese. Otherwise, how could you get a planet? Jupiter is fat and Jupiter is religion. If you couldn't do things like that, like have a planet that's in very mixed conditions, then you couldn't get a planet that's either, very trim and slim and healthy and has, the perfect amount of fat, yet is an atheist or immoral, whatever, or the vice versa. They're like a religious, charitable, moral person, but they're dying from being too fat. That's how you get situations like that. Catherine says Mars in Capricorn at 27 degrees is her weakest, because actually when you do the 6 factors, you may arrive at something different. Broken Soul says, I thought Ketu was strong in Scorpio. I don't know. I'm just studying this book with you. I'm just telling you what the book says. I really would not take every single bit of information on its own as like being the end all and be all of everything. But all the information together is great. Okay, my friends, I will see you in 2 days for the Bhagavatam stream.